Pradeep Bhai. So Jai Jain, everyone. Jai Jain. Pradeep Bhai, can you hear us? Yes, you're on mute. So
yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Great. So as we get started, maybe Pradeep Bhai, would you like to start, or Darshana Ben start with the Namokar mantra?
Yes, I can do that.
And then we'll do introductions. Ji.
Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Airiyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabbasahunam, Eso Pancha Namukkaro, Sabba Pavapanasano, Manglanancha Sabbesim, Padamam Havai Mangalam. Jai Janendra, good morning, Pranam, Diwali Nuttan Varsha Abhinandan.
Great. So as we start, why don't we begin with a round of introductions? We purposely have a small group so that we can do conversation and individualized learnings and sharing. So maybe Meeta Ben, if you would like to start with introduction, and then we'll go down and have everyone give a brief introduction of who they are, where they are, and how and what they're interested in, if they're in the Pathshala as well, what they're doing.
My name is Meeta Shah, and I'm from Hoffman Estill, Chicago. And I'm a level 3 teacher, so 9 to 11-year-old. We teach them like everything, like basically Jain way of life, history of life, Jainism. On Diwali, we had a topic on Diwali, Nav Tattva, Navpad Oli, and we do the like a craft activities too as well. I'm really interested like the teaching part. I really would like to improve my teaching part, like improve my teaching skill, like how we can connect with kids. I know I have so much. I don't want to like say that like, okay, I know a lot of stuff. No, I do know a lot of stuff, but sometimes like it's very hard to put it with the kids. Sure. Like how to explain them, even though I know stuff, but then I cannot even explain certain things to my kids either. And it's very hard to explain like what kind of terminology I should use so they can understand.
Actually, that's what we're going to talk about today. What type of words our kids will better understand. But let's do introductions, and then we'll go more into it. Pallavi Ben, I think her audio may have not. Kushalji, if you would like to introduce yourself. Kushal Singhvi. You're on mute, sir. Aap mute pe.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Kushal Raj Singhvi. I am moderating level 7 along with 2 other moderators, Avinash Patil and Dr. Mosami. Okay. Currently, we are following a book called Pursharth Siddhi Upay.
Got it. Wonderful. Okay. And Pallavi Ben, if you'd like to unmute and.
Okay, got it. Jai Jinendra, Pranam. This is first time I'm joining this meeting. I thought it sounds interesting. I am the teacher with the kids with the age level is between 5 and 7. So sometimes it gets a little difficult to explain them the main marm of the topic. But we have also very good teachers in our team, Shilpa and Meghna Ben and other 3 teachers, excellent teachers we are. So we are trying to, make a sense to kids. And our topics are kind of easy because of the kids' age. So, but we also do the craft work and everything. But we also have a good Pathshala presence. Kids come, lot of kids coming all the time. And that makes us happy. I'm learning right now.
Sure.
I'm not, I still don't know to communicate with kids, at this level, at this age. So it's a little difficult, becomes a little difficult sometimes. But
Absolutely.
we have a good guidance from Pradeep Pai, Darshana Ben, and Mukesh Pai, and
They're
everybody,
superb.
So that's so we are. This is the first time I'm joining, like I said. So I'm looking forward to learn more
Great.
about this one.
Wonderful. So
Yeah.
looking forward to this. All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Prerit Shah, Preritji, would you like to introduce? Yeah, you can introduce yourself, unmute. Prerit Shah. Oh,
He said I cannot talk.
okay, that's fine. Shweta Seth. Shweta ji, would you like to introduce yourself? You can unmute. Okay. Until then, Dipshika.
Jai Jinendra, everyone. I'm Deepshika. I'm from Collierville, Tennessee. I'm not a teacher of Jain Pathshala or anything. I am a mother of two teenage daughters, 14 and 16. So I'm just looking forward to how to explain the kids in terms of in their own way of learning or understanding the Jain Dharma. I know the basics, the concepts, and the way we used to learn by the way of stories and everything. But I guess that's not the way they want. They want more practical implementation in their day-to-day life. So that's what I'm looking forward to hear, that how we can inculcate those kind of concepts in a practical way to them. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we will help you become a Pathshala teacher for the Memphis area. that's my goal here. So
it's called homeschooling in this country.
Exactly. Homeschooling. I think we also have D Doshi. Is that Doleri ji? D Doshi. If you want
Dulari
to
Doshi.
Yeah,
she's with me too. Yeah, she's a very good
Okay.
teacher, very good explainer. Yeah, top of everything. Dulari Doshi. Yeah.
Okay, if she wants to introduce herself, okay, if you can unmute. Yeah. Go ahead, you can speak. Okay. And Navya Jain is there also. Would you like to introduce yourself? Go ahead, you can unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Khushbu. My daughter name is Navya Jain.
That happens very often. I understand very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where are you from?
I'm from Tennessee, Memphis, Collierville.
Yes. And for the group, and how old are your kids?
One is 12 years old and second one is 4 years old.
Great. So again, another potential Pathshala teacher. So getting another potential part. Shail Jain. Shail, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Shail Jain, and I'm here to really just educate myself and then pass it on to the rest of my family. So I'm kind of late to the game, but it's never too late. So I was inspired by Manoj's talk and his dedication to it. So I'm here to really learn and pass it on to my family in more clear terms.
Great. And Shail is in New Jersey, and we met Friday in New York.
Yes.
Bhavisha, yeah, great. Bhavisha, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I was there yesterday, if you remember.
Yeah. Yes. And this is a repeat of yesterday, but you'll get to hear other people as well. So you're welcome to stay. But the next session is on the second part is on next Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
As I said yesterday, I'm a level 4 Pathshala teacher at JSMC, Chicago Center. And our age group is 11, 12 years old. Since that age group is going through the different phase in their lives, that's our challenge sometimes, but pretty much kids are good. And I'm just excited to be here. I'm also actually a yoga teacher. So yeah, I am trying, we try our best to keep our emotions control when something happens in the class. But sometimes it's hard to handle those going to be the teenagers. So
sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And a couple of other people have also joined in, and then we'll have the faculty and staff do some of the introductions as well. Shweta, Shat, if you'd like to introduce, there's also a 1847 number. If you'd like to introduce other people who would like, yeah, please.
Yeah, sorry, actually, I was typing actually that time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My name I am from the JSCVA Pathshala teacher, Richmond, Virginia.
Great.
And I've been Pathshala teacher past 5 years. So one thing is very important, like I learn with the kids actually, and I really enjoy the journey. Being like Sthanakvasi Jain, I don't know so many rituals and so many things, so many stutis I don't know. So I'm also learning with the kids. So first I learn and I teach them. So
Perfect.
that's
great.
part. So they're following the Jaina Jaina books, all kids level book actually.
Great. Great. And then I see Leena Shah.
Thank you.
And then we'll get Pradeep Bhai and Darshana Ben also. Yeah. Yeah. Leena Shah, if you'd like to introduce yourself. If not, and then as anyone else left, and then Pradeep Bhai and Darshana Ben, and then the rest of us. If not, maybe Pradeep Bhai, introduction for some of the people in Memphis and other places. I know Chicago, everyone knows you guys, but go ahead. Yeah.
Jai Janendra, can you hear me? Because I got
can hear you very well. Okay. Yes.
All right. Pradeep Shah.
Yeah.
Pradeep Shah from Chicago. I'm education secretary for last, I don't know how many years. That's too many. And in between, Darshana was a secretary. So basically, I got involved in the Jain education in 98. And we've been doing lots of activities. Challenges are there. Successes are there. The good news is successes are a lot more than our challenges. So that is a good news. So I'll share the challenges thing at the end of the session as you put in your guideline. I don't want to right now. I just do a general introduction. All the people who are not from Chicago, you can reach me anytime. If you have any question on Jain education books, particularly Manoj Bhai was telling me about e-library and Jain Quantum. If you're not aware how to use it, it is a must tool for all the educator to use that tool. It's a learning process. You will learn very fast, believe me or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Dipshika and Khushbu, who are from Memphis area, I think you will really enjoy Pradeep Bhai's help in seeing and navigating through some of that. And then Darshana Ben, would you like to introduce yourself? I think maybe, yeah. Darshana Ben, would you like to introduce yourself? I think they're just moving. Yeah. All right. And so until then, I will. So I'll do a brief my introduction. So I'm Manoj Jain. I'm based in Memphis. I'm a infectious disease doctor, very involved in Jainism. I don't know if you have seen this book from Havira. I was very inspired to write this with Demi for our young children. So those who are teaching the young kids, this is a great resource, talks about Bhagwan Mahavir. And then we'll talk a little bit about Jain way of life. Yogen Bhai, my brother, worked on that. And now we're working on the idea of Jain path, how to take Jain religion to our younger generation in terms that they understand, not terms that we understand. And we'll talk more about that. And with me are two other staff people who are very helpful. But before we get to them, Darshnaben, would you like to introduce yourself? You can hear us?
Jai Jinendra. And as Pradeep said, we both joined Pasha together like in 98. Yeah. And since then, I've been teaching high school student. And so we have like a attendance growing, sometime going down and up and down, but still it is getting there. And the kids are interested. We try to get like different topics. And I think I had sent the list one time, like what different topics we have been trying lately. So like one time we have like, most of the time we try to get the kids involved. So whatever subject we are teaching, we put in between like 5-6 questions and then ask the student to discuss among themselves, like those were like 3 sitting together. So, and they ask, and then one person kind of gives their what they think or what they learn. So that's how the kids get really involved, and they don't get like bored, and they don't start like doodling in the notebook and like that. So that has been helping, and the kids, they participate, and we try to connect the topic to the current event and a current situation, what they are. So they kind of, it keeps them involved. Okay. And basically all different programs, I think, student, that I think is coming later on, or Pradeep is already. So we can go over that in the any other program, anybody interested, we can go over that later on.
Absolutely, great. So I want to introduce two people who are staff with the Long Range Planning Committee. So I am part of the Long Range Planning Committee, and one of the objectives from Jaina's Long Range Planning is that we create platforms. We create areas where we can convene and talk about our religion in different ways. And this is one of the ways that we're doing it and with Pashala teachers. So Vitika Barjatia is based in Indore, and I would like her to introduce herself and give us a little bit of a background of what she does, and then also share how she will be able to help. And Vitika, if you could maybe temporarily do the video, share your video also, that would be great. Are you there?
Yeah. Jai Jinendra, everyone.
Go ahead.
My name is Vitika Barjatia, and I am based in Indore, India. I am working as a supportive staff with Jaina Long Range Planning Committee and Jain Path. I am also a mother of 2 kids. One is 10-year-old and one is 1-year-old. So I have joined Manotsa because of the same reason, that how to promote or how to give the basics of Jainism to our kids. So I'm also there to assist Pathshala teachers in their Jain Path journey across the country in whatever way we can. So like by engaging them, by talking to them, by knowing what problem, what challenges they are facing, and what help they need from our side in that way.
So I can hear Mari Karma Samras.
Thank you.
Great. And I also want to introduce Edwin Rodriguez. Edwin has been working with me for 15 years. He's an IT consultant based in Indore also, and he's who makes all the slides and all of the other content happen. Edwin, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, hi, hello everyone. This is Edwin. I'm IT consultant and I've been working with Dr. Jain for over 15 years now. And I have experience in multiple domains like education, healthcare, and information technology. Thank you.
Great. So let us get started. And so I will begin with the first and foremost question. Why are we here? Why are we getting together? And I'm going to begin with sharing slides, and I want to make sure that you can see some of the slides. Really a conversation about how do we take our religion and share it with the next generations. and really about how we can relate Jainism to them. So that is what the conversation will be about. And I'm going to have Pradeep Bhai also share his thoughts of why we are gathering together and the bigger picture of bringing Pathshala teachers together. So I will say first and foremost this: the Pathshala teachers are a key to Jainism in North America. If you have not yet realized this, the future Jain children, and you're seeing the first generation already come, are entirely dependent on the Pathshalas and their parents. But most often, it is the parents, the young parents, who are the teachers. We know that different Pathshala teachers have different backgrounds. Are there ways that we can communicate and share on a common platform many of this background? We know that it takes passion to come together every other Sunday or one Sunday a month, that there's dedication there. And at the end, we want to preserve our religion because we find value in our religion and we want to do it with our kids. But we have to do it in a language that our kids understand, not the language that we may have been taught or the language we want to promote all. And that is the conversation. And the Long Range Planning Committee over the past 10 years has developed material that we want to share with you this session and the next session, and certainly get feedback in a pilot group of teachers on how we share our religion with the next generation. With that, I'll ask Pradeep Bhai to share why we are getting together and his thoughts on that as well. And then we will begin to share some of the content and get some feedback as well. Pradeep Bhai, your thoughts. And you'll have to unmute. I think you're on mute.
You covered most of it. I think the challenges we all have is different backgrounds, different tradition in Jain religion.
True.
Stanakwasi, Digambar, Terapanthi, Rajchandra, Shatambar, these other tradition.
Yeah.
And young parents coming from a mixed marriages, Hindu, non-Jain, Jain, non-Jain. So I think these are the challenges. Language is another challenge. So at home, some kids speak only Hindi and they come here. Yeah. They expect them to be told in Hindi for when the very young age, then you transition to English language later on. So I think the goal of our Manoj Bhai's program is how we can make it universally acceptable or at least somewhat doable for all generation, all the kids.
Yep, excellent. Okay, so if our Pathshala teachers are the key in taking this approach, one of the things that the Long Range Planning has done was to put together a Jain Way of Life book about 10 years ago. And I want to ask how many people had a chance to look at this or see this? Anyone has seen the Jain Way of Life book in our group?
Yes, I have seen it. I've gone through many times and I have offered it as a reference to many youngsters.
Great. So just think of this. If the Jain Way of Life book provided the practices, we're going to be talking about a Jain path. And what Jain path is going to talk about are the practices which we work to divide into 41 terminologies, 24 words that people will understand. Jain practices, and we'll talk about Jain principles, and 3, the AAAs that our kids can understand, and then a Jain philosophy. 4 philosophies: theory of life, theory of soul, theory of karma, and theory of moksha. So in the next 2 sessions, this session and next session, we'll go through those conversations. Now, why for me is also an important conversation. First and foremost, making Jainism relatable. I think we've all agreed to that. It's important. But we also need to engage the Jains. We find that so many of us, when we get caught up in the materialistic world of gaining and acquiring and also educating ourselves, but we leave our religion behind. And that's a great loss. We also need to increase and improve the attitude of Jains towards Jainism. There are so many values and virtues that we don't understand, and to take pride in those. And then all of this, understand that there is an underlying scripture, the Tattva Sutra, which we can call the Bible of the Jains, that there are, and we want to be able to relate our principles, and we'll do that in the process, to
Manoj
the
bhai,
Tattva Sutra. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just kind of, still we have that fact that we have to use the term Bible to show what is Tattva Sutra is.
I know. And I cringingly use that word. But yes, you're absolutely right. But it serves a point, but you're right. And we hope not to use that in a common term in the future.
Thank you.
Yep. Create attractive graphics so that we are engaged and involved. Categorizing the teachings so that it's easy to learn. Tattva Sutra is great book. However, it's, if you have read it, which I have a dozen times, it's jumbled all over the place. Also, self-reflection. Pitika will work with you in a engaging, entertaining, enjoyable self-reflection exercise. We call it the Jain journey, and we'll share that with you. And also to put it in terms of looking for joy, happiness, and equanimity. In our next conversation next week, we will talk about what is happiness, and we'll define it in our own terms and how it relates to a religion, and introducing Jain values even to non-Jains in North America. A lot, but I'll pause with that, and then let us go into a deeper conversation. The first and foremost of which is our religion, Jainism, for 2,500 years has had many treasures, and yet we haven't been able to use them effectively or communicate them amongst our community, our children, and future. And now the question is, how do we do that as individuals? How do we do that as Pathshala teachers? And more so, how do we do it also for ourselves living in North America? So in part, that is there. So I want to take the next 5 to 7 minutes and really take you on a journey to think, a path of what we're looking at as a constructive model of thinking about the Jain philosophies and religions. So what is Jain path? It is really talking about ki apna goal kya hai, life mein, what are we looking for? If in Jainism, we know that we want moksha, but in our day-to-day lives, we're looking for equanimity. And then we're also looking for present happiness, which is joy, which is pleasure. But yes, this is what we are looking for. How can our religion help us? Our religion provides philosophy, it provides principles, and it provides practices. Now, these are terms that might seem difficult at the beginning, but I will just tease through them a little bit. And yes, अपन को बहुत मजा आती है जब अपन rituals करते हैं, अपन दिवाली करते हैं, we need those. There's no question we need that. But अगर आप सोचिए, if you only had rituals and festivals, and you didn't have the philosophy, principles, and practices, our religion would be hollow. Any religion would be hollow. So rituals and festivals are good, but we need to know the philosophy, principles, and practices. So what's the difference between a philosophy, principle, and a practice? I think this is important. The philosophy is the fundamental nature of reality, what things are. Principles are some of the key truths, like the triple A's, Ahimsa, Nikantavada, Parigraha. We'll talk about those today a lot. And practices are the application, the day-to-day, and how we engage as through man, vachan, and kai, thought, speech, and action, the way we conduct ourselves. So that is the difference in the philosophy, the principle, and practices. Our religion, Jainism, has lots of them. Philosophy में अपन बातें करते हैं द्रव्स, Pudgal, Dharma, Adharma, Akash Kal. Our kids can learn and memorize these things really well. But my question is, can they then translate it into their lives and then explain it to others? And I would argue not as well if we present it in a different way. The principles, the anuvrats and all, there are 5. Some of them may not be as relevant to them explaining others. And then there are practices as well. So that's the traditional. Okay, so philosophy, principles, practices, and Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, Samyak Charit. That is a force that's moving us towards faith, knowledge, conduct. And then in philosophy, we can talk about 4 philosophical principles: theory of life, theory of soul, theory of karma, theory of moksha. In our session next week, we will go into depth on these 4 in detail. But today we're going to be talking about the principles. So if someone asks me what are the core Jain principles, it's very simple. The AAAs, if they're from the Indian background, Jain background, ahimsa, anekantvada, parigara, or non-violence, non-absolutism, and non-possessiveness. What these things mean, we'll share in a little bit. But then what really is important is the practice, the practicalness of the day-to-day life. And how do these things matter? It is, a Jain is defined as a Jain if they are practicing a vegetarian vegan diet. They're working to practice forgiveness. Even I have difficulty forgiving after someone sends a nasty email. I mean, that's life. And then we talked about yoga, exercise, compassion, open-mindedness, and we'll talk contentment, environmentalism. How to take from the scriptures and take these practices and bring them. So in brief, what is Jain Path? Jain Path is the concept and idea of a Jain philosophy, Jain principles, Jain practices, helping us achieve happiness in a constructive model that can help relate to our children and next generation. So I'm going to pause with that, and then we'll spend time going in depth in these principles and practices. But comments, questions, and this is really building up the base of a conversation. It is looking at our religion from the Tattva Sutra in a way that we can make it relatable, more relatable to our children. So questions and comments from the group, because this is a conversation. Anyone? Pradeep Bhai, maybe your thoughts?
Yeah, only thing, one other thing I would like to add, the book, what Manoj Bhai is showing you, Tattva Sutra, it may not be available, but there are several other versions. Some of the versions are very at length, some are short version. Manu Bhai Doshi from Chicago has published a very easy to understand Tattva Sutra also. So if somebody is interested in having that book from this non-JSMC member, please let me know. And members who are familiar with the Jaina e-library, the English version, if you are interested in reading, is by Professor Dixit. It's a translation by Pandit Suklalji. It is one of the best ones that I have seen. And there is another version that I'm not sure. So one of the Digambar Acharya or Digambar Pandit has written, exceptionally well written. I can share the link later on to Manoj Bhai, and he can share the link to all of you.
Absolutely. Great. So let me ask people, does this breaking down into philosophy, principles, practice, does this make sense? Maybe Kushalji?
Yes, I would just want to add a point that we used Manu Bhai Doshi's book Tattva Sutra in our class about 3-4 years ago. For someone who's person like me, Just a little bit background. 1995, I came to this country. Until 97, I just knew Naukar Mantra and nothing else. I did not know the 24th. Thanks to Pradeep Bhai, Mukesh Bhai, and Darshana Mami for inculcating the Jain values and Jain principles in me. And of course, within 4 years, they asked me to kind of moderate a class. I still call myself as a moderator. I don't call myself anything more than that. I'm just kind of coming back to the Tattva Sutra. It was very easy for in our class to use Manubhai Doshi's book. The reason was, of course, the language that is used is, again, what is prevalent in India at that time of the time. But the matter is very much relevant to this country, the way it has been used. So anybody would like to learn Tattva Sutra in an easy way, I strongly recommend them to go with that book. And given this model, I really appreciate it. Things are getting much more clearer for me to kind of even explain, to talk to somebody about the way what Jain principle is, Jain philosophy is, and Jain practices are.
Exactly. Great. Other comments from group? Dipshika, you may have seen some of this in our previous conversations. Any thoughts on that? You just have to unmute, I think, if you there. Okay.
Yeah, I know that I've seen this in our previous conversations, and we all know about the basics, but I think the way it has been broken down in different segments, and the explanation of it related to the practical way, I think that's what is important. So I guess.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, great. Anyone else?
I
think
see
simplicity. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I see Meeta, level 3 teacher, and I believe Lena from Chicago is here.
Yeah.
Just share your thoughts, because what you are doing is a great job. Do you think this kind of thing would help you?
Yeah. Feedback from
Yes,
Meeta?
yeah, definitely it will help. Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll go into great depth on each one of these, what the philosophy is, what the principles and practices are. Yeah. And Lena, would you like to comment? Okay. All right. So now I agree that our goal is there. I want to spend a little bit of time in talking about the AAAs. So that middle part, and I want to begin with this because this is probably the most critical segment area that we need to understand, the Jain principles. So we used this conversation before. If an alien were to come in my backyard and like they say, take me to your leader, or tell me about your goals, tell me about your principles. What do you believe in? And my answer would be very simple. I believe in the AAAs. But what are the AAAs? How do we explain this to our kids? And how do they come from the Tattva Sutra? So this is in the introduction, this is where the AAAs came from. In Tattva Sutra, Natmal Tatia, who I had the pleasure, my brother and I had the pleasure to be with him when he was at Harvard. We were young college kids then, and he was writing this book, the translation, and we had many dialogues with him, and he says it in his first sentence, several sentences as well. The central themes of the Tattva Sutra are non-violence, non-absolutism, and non-possessiveness. Look at that. He took the entire Tattva Sutra and put that. And what does it do? Non-violence strengthens the autonomy of the life of every being. Non-absolutism strengthens the autonomy of thought of every individual, right? Our soul, our thoughts, as well as non-possessiveness strengthens the interdependence of all existence. And then goes on talking about the soul. And this was all written in the 2nd century, just to be able to do that. And so the AAAs comes from there. And I want to put this in a more simple graphic terms. What are they? What is ahimsa? ahimsa is really a level of equality of the souls. What ahimsa is saying is that my soul is equal to that soul of others. I want to minimize the harm that is done to others. All life have right to live. That is what's critically important to understand. Anekantvad is saying the similar thing, that my perspective is respectful enough with others' perspective. Not that you have to agree with that perspective, but there is equality. And then aparigraha is saying that my basic needs are equal to others' basic needs. And it's not just equality, it's equity. Equality means giving the same thing to everyone. That's equality. Equity is that you add fairness and justice, and you give more to those who need more, and so forth. And so if you look at what is Jainism saying, it's really about equity. It is equity at different levels. And just think, 2,500 years ago, Jain scholars had this idea very clearly embedded in their understanding. And today we talk about income equality, racial equality, we talk about gender equality, and certainly soon we'll be talking about equality among souls. So underlying principle of AAAs is that it's changing, but then I'm going to go into depth into each one of those a little bit. But before I do that, any comments or questions on that previous set of slides? Anything?
Anekantvad, I'm sorry, last month I was invited to kind of just introduce Jainism at Kriya Yoga Ashram in Joliet in Illinois.
Huh.
I just spoke about the AAA, and this is what the example I gave about Anekantvad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this, what I'm showing on the screen.
I'm not. But maybe we can take it offline and you can email it to us, or next class we can discuss it.
No, it's very simple letter number. It's number. I don't know if it's.
I'm not able to see.
Oh, probably.
Huh.
See. Yeah, my video is on. It's number 3. I just made a number 3 on a huge paper.
I see. I see now.
I just told them, what do you see? And they said, so think of someone, what do they see?
E.
Now, what do you see now?
Yeah.
So people sitting all the 4 sides, they see different things. Who's right and who's wrong?
Yes.
Everybody's right.
Yep. And we'll talk about that a little bit in how Anekantvad creates conflict and resolves conflict. So we'll get to that in a second. Okay. So first, let's talk about ahimsa. So again, what the conversation we're having is to better understand these concepts for ourselves in common language. So ahimsa is at one level not harming, and it's always harm and also helping, also not harming through our thoughts, so not being revengeful, through our speech, not being abusive, through our actions, being vegetarian, but it's also helping in our thoughts, having empathy, speech, having compassion, action, having forgiveness. So that every time, even Gandhi ji made it very clear, who learned Jainism from Srimad Rachan, he made it very clear that it is not non-violence, is not just not harming, it's also helping. And our religion is very clear. It's not just actual what's happening, but it's the intention, which is really important. And that there is different degrees of violence. And when relating to people, so different degrees. And then relating to the necessity as well, that you may have to do violence in your daily activity and in occupation. And then we know the story of 6 hungry men and a mango tree. One can chop the tree down, one can break the branch, one can pluck a mango, but then one can do the least amount of violence, which is just pick up a mango from the there. So our religion has depth of ahimsa. But there's another level of depth, which is how and why we do certain practices. So one of the most common questions I get asked at YJA convention and other places is, why should we not be smoking? Where does it say in Jainism we shouldn't be drinking alcohol or drugs? In fact, in the Tattva Sutra, it's very clear. Sutra says that we shouldn't be doing it, but why? Because we talk about doing non-violence to animals, right? So we're saying we want to do non-violence to animals. It is not hurting animals. But what about doing non-violence to ourselves? And that relates to not smoking, which hurts our lungs, which hurts our bodies, our arteries. Alcohol, it hurts our brain. And drugs, which also hurts and harms us. Stress is also violence to the self. Eating well, exercising, yoga, meditation. And so non-violence towards the self, then non-violence towards family and friends, non-violence even towards enemies, non-violence towards animals, and non-violence towards the environment. And yes, we do have violence in ourselves. We do have anger, hatred, deceit. How do we transform? It's not just there, religion is not there to tell people that you are bad and but we need to transform ourselves. So the steps our religion teaches us is self-awareness, self-reflection, saying, apologizing, vichami dukkam, and reconciling and not holding grudges. That is the path to forgiveness. In hatred, same thing, begins with self-reflection. And we'll do a self-reflection exercise. That will be some of the homework that you'll share. Hatred and criticizing the action, not the person, your insecurities, and then seeing others' views as well. Anekantvad, understanding, hatred to understanding, and deceit to straightforwardness. Similar path. There are ways that we can transform. So that is the principle of ahimsa. Any thoughts and comments, and then we will talk a bit about anekantvad. Do people
Much easier
think,
to understand than just the theoretical part of it. Graphics are very nicely done.
Yes. So Edwin has been superb in putting graphics together. Him and his team in India worked for the past 2 years to develop a lot of the graphics here. So, and we can modify them. And actually, we would really appreciate comments from the teachers and others, because we are in the process of putting and editing some of the graphics and stuff. So if you feel there are things that can be changed, we are more than happy to do that. Any questions on ahimsa before we go to anekantvad and aparigraha? Again, these are ideas that we can begin sharing with our kids. Now, anekantvad. This gets into a little bit of depth, so bear with me.
Yeah. Manoj?
Yeah, please.
One suggestion, and I'm sure this is on your plan on the long-term, long-range planning. I think if we could somehow give this message through stories, rather than just a PowerPoint,
yes,
I think that would be very helpful. Just a thought, okay?
Yeah.
And even turning into some, animation or something.
Yeah,
okay?
Very good point. And this, so first, developing the concepts and the words is important, and now putting it into practical stories and relatable small videos and clips is exactly perfect. Okay, all right. Now, anekantvad. This is a very difficult principle, but we will try to share it so that it's easier to understand. What anekantvad is saying, that you should not have an absolutist view of something, right? A glass is half full or half empty. People argue. Be tolerant, have dialogue, open-minded, and acceptance. So how do we explain this at the philosophical level? Imagine a scenario. This is a self, these are others, and this is a perspective. And we're going to talk about different perspective, how we look at some reality like a glass of water. Ordinary perspective, when we don't think about it in very detail, then as an anekantvadi, when you actively look at it in multiple perspectives, and then as an absolutist, fundamental view, this is the way it is and nothing else. These are the different ways that one can look at it. So when one looks at it from an ordinary view, if I look at it's a glass of water, it's half full, half empty, doesn't matter. Others look at it, it's half full, half empty, doesn't matter. They're not much. The relationship we're looking at is between the self and others. When two people look at the same thing, how do they interact? That is what the critical is. When there is an ordinary perspective, when no one's making a big issue about it, then there's not a conflict or anything major. But you get into a problem. If I say this is half full, and others say, no, it is half empty, then what happens is that there is a conflict between the two. The self and others. One is saying it's half full, other is saying it's half empty, and that leads to disrespect, lack of dialogue, lack of tolerance, closed-mindedness, rejection, violence, conflict, arguments, and even the war that we're seeing in Ukraine. All of these things occur because it's a simple fact. One person and another person's view are in conflict. And so, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this conflict? It is to have a different perspective. Suppose instead of an absolutist perspective, I learned and others learned to have a anekantvadi perspective. And even Gandhiji talked about being an anekantvadi, being able to have, he used that very term. And if others have multiple varying perspective, it doesn't matter even if they have an absolutist perspective. The end is respecting one another. You respect one another. And then what does that respect do? It does not end in conflict. It ends in happiness, equanimity, and path to moksha. Leads to respect, dialogue, tolerance, open-mindedness, acceptance of others. So, in brief, Anekantvad at a deeper level is the way we look at reality, an object, and how that affects interaction between one another. So I will pause with that. And obviously we know the story of the 6 men, blind man and the elephant, and so forth. But any thoughts, comments, or questions? And I know there's a lot of depth in there. It's all written out to share, but yeah. Any comments or thoughts from the group on Anekantvad?
Thank you, Manoj bhai. This is my
yeah.
This is Pallavi.
Pallavi,
Yeah.
what do you think about it?
You're explaining excellent. This is my most favorite topic of Jainism, Anekantvad.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad I'm listening to this.
Okay,
And
great.
thank you, Dr. Manoj bhai.
Great. And you can go and I'll share with you in the Jain path.org, the book that goes into it, more detail.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, very well done, Manoj. Manoj bhai,
Okay.
very well done.
Great.
I have one comment.
Yes, please. Yeah. Other people may need to leave. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Pradeep bhai?
Yeah. Just a minute.
Ji.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
I think the way
One of your devices will have to be turned off, Pradeep bhai.
Can you hear me
or
now?
Muted. Yes, this is perfect.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. The way I learned from one of the book, First Step to Jainism, Sanchit Osulal did a very nice article. And I think I've been able to explain Ahimsa and Anekantvad together. Basic thing is every living being has a 4 instincts. or 10 instincts according to some scripture, but 4 basic instincts is ahar, bhai, maithun, parigraha. So they all want to have a possession, they want to preserve their existence.
Yeah.
So if I disturb anybody's existence, killing any living being, that
Yes.
is not respecting basic instinct of that living being.
Yeah.
So that is the base of anekantva leading to aparigraha. I mean, ahimsa.
Ahimsa.
There is a
Ahimsa, yeah.
nice article written. I can post it for you and I'll give it to you.
Yes, that'd
It's
be great.
beautifully explained
Yeah.
how it works and about 4 basic instincts. Basically, it says all living being wants to live. So you
Yeah.
cannot trample on that personal thought of trampling their life or thought.
Thought, right?
Hmm.
And you can add in and their basic needs.
Yeah,
and
that's
you
correct.
and you can add that on to as basic needs, which is knowing that difference between the needs and the wants is what the non-possessiveness is. So excellent. Yep. And definitely we will share those links with others that we can
And
better
Manoj bhai,
understand.
just give one quick comment.
Huh.
Pallavi Ben's father has written a Gujarati book
Okay.
on Anekantvad and Syadvad.
Yes.
To the point, many munis have referred this book.
Oh, wow.
And recommend this book. And her father is a great scholar of Jainism. And the book is very easy to read. And the way I understand, it is under process of being translated by Sri Kumar, under the direction of Kumar Pai Desai.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Very nice.
please share that with us
It's
also.
certainly, certainly.
And I'll tell you, of all the concepts, Anekantvad is one of the most difficult ones in Jainism. So, but great. All right, I want to talk about aparigraha, the third of the triple A's. So someone lands on it and we explain this is ahimsa, this is Anekantvad. An alien is now saying, hey, wait a second, what is aparigraha? And before I go into this more detail, I would ask people if they get a chance, if they have Netflix, to watch the documentary called Minimalist. It's really good. Okay, so how do we explain aparigraha to our kids? And actually, I'll say this: I have the hardest time with this. So, what is aparigraha? Is knowing that what are basic needs, food, water, what is a necessity. So maybe an iPhone, right? That's a necessity. A comfort, right? Having an air-conditioned car all the time and stuff, maybe. And then what are our wants, right? A bigger house or a more luxurious car, right? A BMW, but not a Toyota Camry. And then there is greed, having a dozen cars, right? Or, sometimes having many devices. What aparigraha is there is a continuum, and we need to see where we are as an individuals. And that's what Jainism is saying, to look at it from that perspective. And at the level, what aparigraha is saying is, it is all about attachment. Having things is one thing, but attaching is the bigger problem. So how do you go to the non-attachment? And what does the soul have to become detached from? It is the body at one level. Yeah, our beauty, our age, our physical strengths. There is a level of attachment. It is an attachment that we have to the mind, our ego, anger, love. That is an attachment. It is an attachment to others, right? You may think at the first level, why would anyone say that, it is not good to love your family, love your friends, and the enemies? Why? But Jainism says, and we go into depth, that is a level of attachment which doesn't allow for liberation. So we can use these graphics and conversations with our kids to help them understand. And lastly, our attachment to money, materials, food, jewelry, and property. It is this principle of non-attachment with these entities that is so critically important that our Jain scriptures tell us. Non-possessiveness in daily life. So this is from the Jain Way of Life book. Everything from the car, the stuff, from our body to eating to many things that are there. So I want to, we have another half hour. And I want to, then we have lots of stuff. And then Pradeep Bhai, we want to definitely hear about you and from you about some of the Jain practices, Jain Pashala best practices that you have seen and shared with us. Okay, now we're going to that stage of 24 practices. We talked about three principles, AAAs. Now, how do those AAAs translate into 24 day-to-day practices? So if I were to say from ahimsa, what is a day-to-day thing I do that is ahimsic, right? The day-to-day thing is either a vegetarian or a vegan diet. That's ahimsic. It is forgiveness, right? Michami dukram, at one day in a year. It is to have compassion, right? Not killing, hurting animals, others. It is to provide service. So from Tattva Sutra, Stotra 5.21 says it very clearly. Parasparo Parakarho Jivanam. Souls render services to one another. Service, part of our non-violent. Exercise yoga, keeping our non-violence towards the self, keeping our bodies healthy. Carefulness. So a few years back, I wrote an article for a piece for the New York Times about how when we came home, we saw an ant in the house running around, a spider, and a cockroach. My wife, my son, and I were there, and with the broom, I picked up the cockroach. My wife picked up the ant, and my son got the spider. And one by one, we escorted them out of the house. Carefulness. We try to avoid harm. Intoxicant-free. We talked about not harming ourselves, and stress-free. So ahimsic practices is what we're talking about. And then the Jain Path book goes into detail in those. One is non-violence towards the self and the non-violence towards others, such as a vegetarian diet, compassion, and non-violence towards the self. Same thing, anekantvad. There are practices of anekantvad. And these practices are very simple, open-mindedness. How much our society today is talking about being open-minded. 100 years ago, no one was talking about being open-minded, but our scriptures have talked about that being a very important. Meditation, mindfulness has become mainstream now. You see TV ads, movies, everyone, people engaging in a practice. 50 years ago, if you were sitting in your office quietly with your eyes closed, they would think that you were sleeping, but it's meditation. Simple, respect others' views. Simple, anekantvad. Humility, understanding that I and the ego isn't everything. Being straightforward, another practice from anekantvad. Reading our scriptures, equity, and even doing the rituals, anekantvad practices from different rituals and sharing. So these are the 8 practices from our scriptures derived in anekantvad. And there are more in details that they're written out. And then lastly, aparigraha. What are the practices from aparigraha? What are some of the things that aparigraha leads to our day-to-day lives? So I'm challenged each and every day, balancing my needs and a want. So I'm debating whether to get a new iPhone or not. My previous iPhone works perfectly fine. And yet I see ads for a new iPhone. It's creating a need in me. It's really a want. It's not really a need. How do I balance? Can I be content? How much does it take to be content? 1 piece of chocolate, 2 pieces of chocolate, 5 pieces of chocolate? I don't know. Aparigraha is also fasting. It is putting self-control there, which is part of austerities, limiting what we do. It is controlling sensual pleasures as well. Yes, there is a place, celibacy and others, but this is putting that into perspective. Aparigraha is letting go of the body, the art of dying. Aparigraha is letting go of our money. What are we going to do with it? Aparigraha is also environmentalism. It is letting go of the many materials, plastics and others that hurt the environment. Okay, I've been talking a lot. I will pause and comments, questions, but that is the broad concept. And each one of this has a philosophical construct that we'll go into, but I'll pause with that and then have people share their thoughts.
Manoj bhai, this is Dalari Doshi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, I have been having audio problems, so I'm sorry at the introduction. I was trying to introduce myself.
Oh,
but
please
you
go
guys
ahead,
couldn't
introduce
hear me.
yourself. Yeah.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
So as I think Meeta, my co-teacher for level 3 Pachara class at Chicago, did introduce me. But yeah, I am level 3, one of the level 3 Pachara teachers. And my first question was these 24 practices. This is such a great list. Would you be sharing? Like, is it possible to get this list so that we can
Absolutely.
also? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. So all of this material, okay, all of this material is open to anyone and all. It is part of the Jaina's long-range planning committee work. And you can go to Jain right now, jainpath.org website. And in fact, we can do that, and I will share with you. It's all there, and I would really encourage people to look at it. And let me see if I can. I have to.
And while you are searching all the Chicago, if you need a JWL book, just let me know. We have copies, and that should include 24 practices. What is he is presenting right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that.
Yeah, soft copy is available.
Yeah. And here's a
Soft copy
soft
and hard
copy.
copy both.
Yeah. Here's the soft copy. So if I just did jainpath.org, this is where you registered. And here's the Jain Way of Life book. Here's the working copy of the Jain Path book. And you can look at it right here. And these are the practices. Talks about the philosophy and many of the things that we've talked about and seen. And then it goes into more depth, the science. This is what we're going to talk about, theory of karma next week. It goes into depth of the philosophy. We didn't want to do philosophy first because people get bored. And this is equity. This is ahimsa. We've seen lots of these things. And this is transformation. Some of the graphics are being updated, anikantvad. So now you have it in words as well. And then certainly the practices and all as well. And so that's all there. And then the Jain Way of Life book is there as well, in e-format that you can go through and look at, and all the practices are there. So this is all from the Long Range Planning Committee. Ahimsa practices are there, anekantvad, and your point of contact, single point of contact on any questions or anything is Vitika. Vitika is going to work with you and engage with you in many of these conversations and stuff. So yeah, but before we finish, I want to take a few minutes and talk about the Jain Path journey. And the exercise that we want and encourage everyone to be doing. So before I do that, so Vitika, why don't you take a minute and tell people about the Jain path, and I'm going to pull it up in a second here. Are you there, Vitika?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, go ahead. Talk about the Jain path journey to people, and I'm just going to pull it up.
Yeah. See, it's like it's a self-reflection exercise which we are doing here. Everyone, we have, this is very small and very easy exercise which we'll be doing. It is a self-reflection exercise. In this, what is our life is all about, like what are our priorities in our life, what are we seeking in our life. So we have divided this Jain path journey sheet in 4 parts. First is my life, in which it is very general, where we'll be asking for your name, age, city, your basic details, and the main thing.
And this is you keep, this is for yourself. This
is for yourself,
You're not
it's
sharing
a
it to anyone.
self-reflection sheet.
Self-reflection, yeah.
Self-reflection, that is only for you to analyze where and why we are doing this.
Yeah.
So here in first part, after telling your details, writing your details, then what are the 3 things that you are seeking for in your life? It can be personal, it can be professional, it can be religious. It's up to you. You just have to write these 3 things here.
Yeah. So that is our first step, right? Then we go into,
Then we go to the second step, that is my reflections. So my reflections is like, see, it's like we are not Jains only by saying that we are Jains or we are going to temple or like this. There are many practices which we can follow or we have to follow. So first, there will be few questions in this sheet where that will help you self-evaluate your life in relationship to these 24 practices. Say, for example, my practice of vegetarian. So I'm not a vegetarian. I often eat non-vegetarian. I'm mostly vegetarian. I'm strict vegetarian, or I am a strict vegetarian or vegan. So it's like you just have to write the number over there.
Yeah.
In the rating of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are the numbers. Which one opts for you?
Right. So just to give you an example, my practice of vegetarian diet, I'm a strict vegetarian, almost a full vegan, and I openly share and encourage my practice with others. And if I was before number 4, I was a strict vegetarian, but I always checked the ingredients, which I still do, but I never really shared it with others. So this, you rank yourself how level you're at. So my practice of forgiveness, I'm still have, so what level would you put yourself at? I verbally ask for forgiveness from a person I dislike or have a strong dislike. So like that, you begin to do self-reflection on needs and wants, open-mindedness,
your meditation, mindfulness, your environment.
And get a mini score. And you get a mini score. So
mini score for that.
Yeah. If you don't have much time, this takes about 5 minutes. Then there is a longer part, which takes about 15 minutes or so. So it talks about charity, art of dying, and then you get a self-reflection.
Talks about all the 24 practices, actually, all the major core practices.
Yes. And then we have
the third part. The third part is seeking your happiness.
Which we'll talk about next week. What is happiness? We
all desire to be happy in our own life, but how can we explore what is the happiness for you? That is what we are looking for. So are you happy? You have to scale that on the scale of 1 to 5. So are you happy or not? Like 1, say for example, in question 1, are you happy? -4. 5, I'm very happy. So I write it 5 over there. So similarly,
so you can put a 5.
In other questions also, we can do the same. How happy are you? Like question 3, I'm complete happy, I'm minimal happy, somewhat happy. Over a health, this is health point of view. Then affection point of view, how are you happy? Then security point of view, significance point of view. in other point of views, you have to write this score from 1 to 5.
So this is a self-reflection exercise we'll share with you. And then next week, we would love to have somebody share their process and what their thoughts were. And then last is
my priorities. It's like, what are your priorities regarding to these 3 main practices: non-violence practices, non-absolutism practices, or non-possessiveness practices. So like, for example, like we have written, like, my top priority is stress-free non-violence towards the self and family, resting and sleeping sufficient. This is my priority. So you have to write your top priority to lowest priority.
Yeah, you can just, it's a drop-down scale right here, and then you choose. Suppose if in this area, I'm really wanting to focus in on being compassion. So I make that first. And then I can say second priority is service. And in that way, I can rate. These are all the practices written here. What this exercise does is helps you in these 3 categories write out what your top priorities are and what are your lower priorities. Again, the purpose for doing this, the Jain Path Journey, is a self-exercise. So I'll pause with that and see if any questions. And
second, just a second. We will forward you as this sheet as a link. You just have to click on that link, and it will ask you to save it. So you just have to save it, but you should have your Google account. If you don't have your Google account, you can just make your Google account, and it will help you go there as a master sheet.
Yeah, and we can also send an Excel. Great.
Yeah.
All right, and before we get final words, and then Pradeep bhai, to hear from you on your thoughts on challenges and best practices, each of the practices that we've talked about is supplemented with a meaning of that practice. So let's take service from Ahimsa. Service can be done for money or other gain. Then where does it come from? Tattvat Sutra 5.21, right? Souls render services to one another. So each practice is related to the sutras. And then we added another element, which I think our kids would really have interest in. What does service do? How does science look at it? Improves our mood, decreases blood pressure, lowers our stress, and on and on. And so all 24 have this slide structure, which you can look at, and we have time, we can look at that. Carefulness, where it comes from, what it means. Intoxicant free, where it comes from in the sutra, and what it means in science benefits and so forth. All right. Enough talking from my end. Over to you, Pradeep bhai, and to others and conversation as we finish up today. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Pradeep bhai?
Yeah, I'm sure all the members of Chicago team know what we are doing it, but there are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 non-Chicago. I can share my slides.
Yes,
what is
please.
successful and what is not successful. It is not based on what you just talked about it, but what is my experience as a Pathshala teacher and educator, secretary for last few years. So if I can share my screen.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Quick, few slides.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pradeep Uncle, can you hear me? Yeah, before you go, I have a question in Anikantwad. Why we believe like Anikantwad, like we accept, like we are teaching the kids, like we have to accept like everybody's religion. Like in that perspective, like everybody's same, all religions are same, but at the same time we are teaching them like Jainism is the best one. Like we do believe in like our jinas, but at the same time we are telling them like we have to respect everybody's religion. So kids really get confused over there. Like one way you are telling like we have to respect, but at the same time you are telling like we have to believe in jinnahs.
Okay, Manoj
So
bhai,
what is the
your,
Sure.
what is
I,
the
I
answer?
have some answer.
Yeah, I'll tell you my answer, Mita Ben. I'll tell you. What Anekant Pad tells us is that you have to listen and respect others' views.
Right.
And even others, you have to listen and respect. You don't have to accept everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I very much, if someone comes from a Muslim background and they want to share their views, I am more than happy and willing, and I take time. And then I say, yes, I understand that perspective. But for me, the core is nonviolence, and that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what is really important. And I am willing to keep my, at a stage where if we are going to have differences of views, that is acceptable, but I will be aware and accepting of those individuals. I will not banish them, hurt them, or put them down for that perspective. That is very fundamentally different from how even other political parties do to one another. If you're if you're a Democrat in a very Republican state, and you see what the fundamentalists do to one another, that's what Anekant Pad is telling us. You don't have to accept everyone's views. You have to be able to respectful for others' views. Pradeepa, your thoughts? How do you see
I
it?
think it's the same thing.
Same.
I was going to say, you don't have to approve,
Yes.
but you have to accept.
You just
At one stage we have to accept. Even Bhagwan Mahavir Swami could not convince his son-in-law.
Son-in-law, right?
So who we are to explain that we are. So at that time, you have to just back off if somebody gets a big discussion about it. This is your view, as Manoj Bhai says. Okay, I respect, but I don't have to approve everything. I don't have to accept everything. And again, the core principle of non-violence in Jain religion is micro to macro living being, from 1 sense to 5 sense. Most of the other religions, even they talk about ahimsa, they talk about only 5 sense living being. They do not go under there.
Right. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
And if I
Just
could
add a
just
point.
add a comment, Mita, I know that we do tell
we
our
do discuss
kids
about that one. Right.
that they have to review, they have to respect other religions as well.
Right.
But what helps with what both Manoj Bhai and Mama said is that when you have your fundamental belief, but you are willing to listen to others and accept others' viewpoints, you also have an opportunity to perhaps explain what you are all about,
that we are,
so that others are not going to right away reject you or oppose you. And that may be one way to spread the word of nonviolence, because we know all around us, there's just so many challenges with just politics are all around us, to the wars in the world. We are very fortunate that we are born Jain, or we are learning about Jainism, and we get to practice as best as we can. And then we get to teach our younger generation. But taking it to the next level, which is also spreading it, where, it starts with a very small thing, telling your friend in during lunch that, you know what, maybe if you didn't eat meat today, I could maybe share my lunch with you. And, kind of spread that nonviolence practice, to maybe teaching someone who's a fundamentalist to say why violence is not the answer. So when you respect others' viewpoint, others will hopefully respect
also
your
respect
viewpoint.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just add a point, please. I have
please.
a point to make.
Yeah, Kushalji, go ahead.
So I have encountered someone who said that I don't believe in religion, I don't believe in philosophy. I said, very good. I approve of your, I'm sorry, I agree with what you want to say, but I might not accept it, but I am listening to you. Then I just said that, what if I hurt you? What will you feel about it? Physically, if I hurt you, will you take it? He said, no, it causes pain, I won't. I said, thank you very much. Now we are talking, we are discussing. If I'm being disrespectful, I argue with you and I'm trying to put you down, how would you feel? Or if you do that to me, how would I feel? So yeah, we don't want to be, arguing about something. If you don't agree, you might respectfully say we don't agree. I said, That's all. If you can practice these things of not hurting anybody, you don't have to follow any isms.
Yeah.
But then when you practice, you feel happy, you feel content, then you can move to just looking at the principles. Don't add
Yeah.
ism to it.
Yep.
Just feel that you don't want to be hurt, you don't want to hurt others.
Excellent. Very well said.
Excellent. Yeah.
Great. Pradeep bhai, you want to share your slides and we can finish off?
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to share. Yeah, it's coming on. So yeah, great.
Okay,
And
what I'm going to share,
yeah,
Darshan, I would share what has worked for, this is for non-JSMC members.
Sure.
What has worked, you can see the list. I can
Yes.
share the slide with you with Manoj bhai, and he can.
Yes, we can
and
add
if
it
you need
on
any
to
more
this.
information, I don't want to go into each and activities. This
Yeah.
has worked very great. No, this
Okay.
is of course success story, but there are some challenges too. And this is the other thing has worked in the past.
Yeah, yeah. So this is
and
really good.
We were the first center to go on live Zoom as soon as the corona hit on first week of March. No, second week of March.
Yeah.
Corona started March 13th, 14th, then we were on a Zoom on next week. And
Yeah.
we didn't stop. So
yeah,
I'm going to share the general topics of how this is just I'm sure
Yeah.
they are all doing the same
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
but I'm just
yeah.
putting highlights.
No, this is good.
This is what the interesting, I'll have Darshana to talk about. Level 6 is a very difficult age group to teach teenagers. Darshana.
Very difficult, very difficult.
You give me a hard job.
Yeah.
Okay, here I can. So these are the like different topics we have covered, like just taking Aarti and Divo, like Mangal,
Yeah.
we do it every day. It's a ritual, but then we went like detail of that one. So for them, for the kids, it was very interesting because it was not written, it's not detail written anywhere, but then I learned from some dignitary. Then we have like debate in the class about like joining the army or animal testing or like so different topics about the debate. So that also, so a couple of times we have done it, that our students go to level 4 or 5 and they kind of last 10-15 minutes and they kind of present one topic there. So they also learn, and the kids also learn, listen, they like to listen from these younger kids. Then the Chitrabanuji's book, 12 Facets, 12 Facets of Reality. And in that one, these 12 bhavnas are presented in a positive way. So that is also very interesting when you say anitya bhavna, so nothing is permanent. And that kind of, if you think that way, it kind of brings like depression. Oh, there is nothing permanent. What am I doing here? But then you turn that into positive way, that that we have refuge in Tirthankar, we have refuge in our religion and family, all those things. Then other topic, the 15 ways of moksha, there's the last chapter of Tattvar Sutra. Then we compare several times because more students are like mixed marriage, so Hinduism. So we make a like comparison to like world religion. Another thing we have done in our class is Jain history, going along with the Indian history, and at the same time world events happening at that time. So kids get perspective, like a wider perspective. What is the other topic? So woman, place of woman in Jainism. So we tell the story of like a different woman leader or sadhvis and what is their place and what is their contribution to Jainism. Contemporary Jain leaders, so not talking about all the historical thing, people, but also current like Acharya Chandanaji, then Sushil Muniji, Chitra Bhavanaji. So at least they know that is happening in our current, like they are here, and they can even spread religion and they can be thinking from our perspective also.
We can share a little.
So then we have several times we have invited some of our graduate from our high school, class, and those who have already been in the college. So to come and share their experience, how they survived college life. And so that was the different thing.
I think there are too many things. I can share the slides to all of you.
Actually, it would be great. Yeah, Edwin.
And this is the Manan Bhai, this is what I would like to present little more.
Yeah.
What are the challenges?
Sure. Let's go ahead.
Kids are dependent on their parents. If the parents need to bring the kid, that is the most success. I think that is a biggest challenging factor what we face. Some of the kids want to come, parents are not ready. And some parents drop the kids and go shopping, and that doesn't work for the kids because they don't see their role model father doing anything in the temple.
Right.
So they're not encouraging their children. And again, Pathshala activities sometimes gets a second in the command.
Piano lessons, violin lessons, soccer practice, XYZ. Yeah.
And these are the things we tried several times, has not worked that great.
Yeah. So this forum, and we'll finish up here and continue the conversation next week. This forum is really a chance for us to talk about, and specifically in the area with Pathshala teachers, talk about ways we can build the resources together. And it's really a start of the conversation. And we'll bring in the Dallas and Virginia teachers next week as well, have a bit of a larger group at that time. But that will be a great conversation. And Pradeep, I'll ask if you can share that PowerPoint with Edwin, and Edwin will put that on the jainpath.org website next to the books as well. So people can have access to this PowerPoint with Pathshala. And honestly, in closing with everyone, and then Pradeep, I will do Namokar Mantra, and is to say that this is really work in progress. We are feeling our way through on how to disseminate Jain values to the Jain kids in North America. Pathshala is a great vehicle, but then how do we assist Pathshala teachers to do that? So with that, we shall finish today. We'll meet next Saturday at 10:30. Another conversation. You saw some graphics. You will be really amazed to see some of the other additional graphics. You really, really enjoy them. And thanks to everyone for taking time to be with us today. So Pradeep bhai, Namokar Mantra to finish us off.
Shivamastu sarva jagata parahita nirta bhavantu bhutagana dosha prayantu nasham sarvatra sukhi bhavatu loka kame mi sauva jive sauve jiva khamantu me mitti me sauva bhuvesu vairam majjanakenai sarva mangala mangalyam sarva kalyana karanam pradhanam sarva dharmanam jainam jayati shashanam.
Jain and Manoj, it's a really great session. I enjoyed, we all enjoyed.
We all enjoyed. Thank you so much. It was very great explanation. Yes.
See you next week, and please work on the worksheets, and Vitika will be in touch with you through WhatsApp, text, and email. So you'll really enjoy doing the worksheets, and we'll share it next week. Take care, Jai Jain. Have a wonderful week.
Jai Jinendra. Jai Jinendra.
Bye-bye.